Mark Kelso, Buffalo Bills on the line right now. Mark, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How's everything up there in Utica?
Well, I got to tell you, it's very cold.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But, man, our hearts are warmed. Holy.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's what makes us hardy people up there in western New York and throughout New York State, right? And eastern New York.
How about, I could not for the life of me explain to my wife as we're waiting, and, we did one of those prepaid deals where you go to a hotel room and you hang out for New Year's Eve, and we did one of those. And dinner had already started. And the Bills game ends. We win. And my wife is like, okay, let's get down there. The buffet is going to be empty. And I'm like, well, we can't go yet because there's another game I'm watching the end of this game. She could not figure that out. But I got to tell you, holy moly, what a finish to that game.
Yeah, no, it was exhilarating for I think everybody in the Bills organization. I mean, many of those people, I would dare say most of them, and particularly all those in marketing and that run the business operations, and most of the players, although some of them have had some playoff experience from some other clubs, and I know when they were making those decisions this year about bringing guys to be part of this Bills organization from a team perspective, they brought some experience and some playoff experience, but it was exhilarating. There's no question for guys like Kyle Williams and guys that have played at such a high level but have never had the opportunity to get to the postseason. And it was really kind of neat because they were in the locker room watching. We were still up in the booth, and I think John had gone down to the locker room to conduct some interviews, but I was still up with our producer, Greg Harvey, and kind of tearing down the booth but watching the television at the same time. And when it happened, it was just an eruption of emotions and excitement, and it was really neat to see, and the response from the Bills fans and the Bills community has been fantastic.
Yeah, you were there for the good years. Tell me what it has been like from when the Bills were thought of to be as one of the strong teams in the NFL. 4 back-to-back, 4 straight Super Bowls. Obviously, they didn't end well, but to the years in between, these 17 years up until now, it's been a long run.
Yeah, no question, and you're right. It didn't end particularly well, but there's still a lot of value in attempting to do something and doing things with excellence, and still not quite achieving that final goal. But you want to honor the past, but you don't want to live in the past. And I certainly, these guys, most of the guys that are on these clubs, and aside from guys that have been in the organization a long time, don't know. I don't suspect. I mean, obviously they know about the Super Bowls, but they're not living in the tradition of the Bills organization, because they're trying to play now and kind of create a new history here for the organization and for the team. So it's great for the fans. There's no question about it. It's been a long time coming. And as Coach McDermott keeps saying, it's a process. And I think the most impressive thing they did this year was they went on that 3-game skid, and they were able to overcome that and come back and win some games, and win a game they maybe weren't supposed to win that very, very kind of unique and just it was kind of surreal, the snow game against Indianapolis, and able to win a game in extreme weather conditions. So they did some things, and when you're able to do those kinds of things, and it just cauterizes that locker room, and that's what kind of brings you together as a I don't want to have too many military analogies, because the military is so much more serious, but it does kind of band you together like brothers. There's no question about that, and it makes you realize that all that effort that you've expended has been rewarded on the other end, and now if you can continue to to execute that template, then you have an opportunity to get there on a consistent basis, and I think that's what they'd be trying for. And it's not inconceivable that they would win this game this week. I think this game against Jacksonville will hinge on 2 or 3 big plays from either club.
Tell me about LeSean McCoy. What you're hearing? I mean, the ankle injury. You really have to worry for a guy like McCoy, who is so mobile and able to ankles are pretty important for McCoy. What are you hearing? He's going to be. It looks like he's going to be good, but is he going to be 100%?
Yeah, I mean, I can't. There is no medical credibility to what I'll tell you, because I don't know anything other than what happened on the field on Sunday, And they diagnosed it as a sprain. I don't know if it's a high ankle sprain or a typical sprain. He's a dynamic player. There's no question. His lateral quickness is his exceptional lateral quickness is what makes him so dynamic as a running back. And I think, easily one of the top 3 guys in the league, if not the top guy, because he can just do things that the average guy and even great players cannot do. He's just got that instinctiveness about him and that feel. He kind of feels people coming. He can avoid hits. He can make people miss in open space, and it's remarkable what he's able to do. So I'm sure that if there's an injury, obviously if it was bad enough to keep him out of that game, which was very important, although I think the Bills felt like they had that Miami game in pretty good control, and defensively they weren't giving up too much to an offense in Miami that's pretty potent. So they figured they'd keep him on the sidelines, and in fact in the event that they won and ended up in the postseason. But it's going to limit. It would have to limit him a little bit.
Yeah.
I would imagine it would be heavily taped, and again, it's his lateral quickness which is so important. So if he's cutting off that foot, I would think it's going to affect him negatively in some way. He's not going to be 100%, but LaShawn McCoy at 85% is better than most guys at 100%.
No doubt. Yeah.
And without his services, it would be very, very difficult to win. Although those guys, particularly against Miami, Murphy, the young player that there was his first game in the Bills uniform, and Michael Tolbert both played well in LaShawn McCoy's absence in that second half.
Tell me, let's go back to Week 11 when McDermott decided to bench Taylor for Nathan Peterman. We all know how that ended. But Taylor was able to come back, and look, he's gone from being benched midseason to the guy that's brought him through this playoff drought. Taylor's playing pretty well right now.
Yeah, I just think he continues to play at the same level he's always played. He's got some areas of limitation. I think a lot of them by virtue of the fact that his stature, his physical stature, is sometimes he doesn't have great sight lines to see across the middle of the field. So sometimes I think he misses some people there. And I think I've continued to say that one of the things he doesn't do well enough is he doesn't trust himself. And if he trusts himself and lets balls go, he's got great accuracy. He can throw a great deep ball. You see with the couple of plays he threw last week, the touchdown pass to Nick O'Leary comes to mind, where it was great touch. Nick O'Leary was running all by himself, and he just had an opportunity to float it over there and let O'Leary run to the football. And that's just great kind of foresight and instinctiveness by a quarterback to know I don't have to zip it in there. And thought he had the other one too when he had Nick O'Leary down the other end of the field, and maybe for a touchdown there. But he continues. Tyrod's got great leadership qualities. He's got, he's like a lot of quarterbacks that if the running game is successful, that will enable the play-action pass game to be successful. And if those two things are successful, then typically the offense has a good day. But he manages the game well. He's got some great improvisational skills. He's dynamic with the ball in his hands. And there's a few things that aren't really the strength of his skill set, but nothing that would prohibit him from winning a playoff game and taking this team a little deeper in the postseason.
Almost when you look at McDermott's decision, everybody thought that was just a horrible decision. It's not looking so horrible after all.
I'm glad you mentioned. I want to bring that up because it's interesting. I mentioned earlier the Music City Miracle and the Titans, because of that play, and they wound up in the Super Bowl that year. And it's interesting with the Peterman because if the Bengals don't make that comeback, you look back and you go, well, if the Bills didn't start Peterman and they win that game, maybe they're in the playoffs and they're not hoping the Bengals beat the Ravens. Ultimately, it does work out. Mark, I wanted to ask you again about Tyrod Taylor. I totally agree. When he's got the ball in his hands, he can do a lot of things other quarterbacks can't. I still feel like he struggles. And there's one play in particular. It's always when the defense is in cover two, he's trying to hit the wide receiver on the sideline, and he can't get it in that window. I feel like he either throws it out of bounds or he's picked off so many times. But you're right. McCoy,
he really hasn't been picked off that much, though.
No, he hasn't, but there's a tight window to get it into, and I feel like he struggles there. But so much of that is keyed by the running game and whether or not McCoy's healthy this weekend.
Well, no question. There are very few quarterbacks in this league who can do it without a running game. Tom Brady can do it. Aaron Rodgers can do it, I think. And Drew Brees may be able to do it, although he's got a good running game as well. But there's few quarterbacks that can do it without a complimentary game. And I mean, again, Coach McDermott and that staff talks about it all the time. It's complementary football. It's creating good field position for your offense with good defensive stops and not allowing teams to convert on third down. It's flipping the field when you do get yourself in some trouble, and it's the offense moving the ball and again, kind of gaining ground. Even if you don't convert third downs, you're gaining ground every possession so that eventually you have a good field start and you have an opportunity to score points on the other end. But there's again, Tyrod I think he's got terrific skills, and he needs to trust himself, and sometimes that's a trust factor as well, because if they're playing a cover two like you were describing, and the cornerback does his job, with excellence, so he's going to sink back a little bit, and then you try to fit somebody in behind him and then in front of the safety, and that's a ball that's a tight window. There's no question about that. But I think sometimes, again, the only thing that Tyrod lacks is trust in himself, because I think he can make the throw. Sometimes he's just a little bit more conservative, perhaps, than he needs to be in those situations, because he's concerned that he doesn't want to turn the ball over. That's an admirable quality as well, because this offense hasn't done that. But they're going to have to – the only thing that bothers me about this offense is that they don't really have a vertical component. Now, Deontay Thompson has kind of enabled them a vertical component of late, and I hope they do some things to create opportunities to extend this team down the field, because this Jacksonville defense is really, really good. They're solid. Yeah. I mean, I think they got 55 sacks on the year. So, I mean, they were bringing it. And they've got guys on the outside, young guys that can cover. I mean, this is a defensive unit that is really plays at a high level in most categories defensively, and are at the top of a lot of categories in the NFL here on the defensive side of the football. And then on the offensive side, they're a great rushing team, and that gives Bortles the opportunity to execute a play-action pass game and kind of manage the game as opposed to having to win the game. So it'll be an interesting contest, but by no means is, I'm not a big line guy, but I think they're saying that Jacksonville's 7-point favorite. There's no way that I don't think that will stick. But by the end of the week, they'll probably be 3-point favorites there in their home building. But this game will hinge on 2 or 3 big plays on either side of the football.
I have one final question that we have to ask you about, and that is, could you explain to me why New York has forgotten about inconclusive evidence to overturn a call? Normally, when it's just so close, and on the field it's ruled a reception and a touchdown. How can they overturn it when it doesn't? What's a catch anymore? I'm confused.
Yeah, we're going back to the Benjamin catch against New England. So you're talking about that, and then of course they had another controversial play against Miami when Jarvis Landry extended that ball and it popped out. And I mean, my understanding of the rule there is that they got that one right. I don't know if he was out of bounds. I never saw him out of bounds, but the Jarvis Landry, that is. But when he extended the ball and the ball came loose, in my mind, that's the ground causing a fumble. And as soon as the ball hits and his knee's down and he's down by contact, then he's down. If he hadn't been down by contact, then it could have been considered a fumble. And then the Benjamin play, it's splitting hairs. I mean, you slow it down frame by frame, and I still think even in that situation, it was very difficult to see that his one foot was off the ground before he had complete control. Ultimately, he made the catch. He controlled the catch all the way through the ground. You had an official on the end line, and you had the side judge, both of which were in outstanding position to make that call. They made eye contact with each other. They conferred that was the right call. They agreed that it was a touchdown. They signaled touchdown, and it confuses me greatly how they figured there was enough evidence to overturn that. Those guys made a great call on the field, and I think it inhibits their ability to do their job on the field, because now they're being second-guessed, and they really have no authority. I mean, now the authority has been stripped from the referee on the field, and it goes right to New York. They make the decision. All they do is administer the decision that they make in an office somewhere. So, I mean, I'm not a big fan of replay. I've made that known over the years here, and obviously it's corrected some plays, but it's a human game. There's going to be some human error, and I'm okay with that.
I agree. I mean, how long before they put a chip in the ball, and placement's going to be all about where that chip is. The refs are just going to be there to make sure the chips are working properly when this is all said and done. It is.
We could do that, and then
crazy.
why don't we just forget players and we'll put some robots out there and let those guys play too.
I agree.
No concussion protocol for them.
Certainly help with the concussions.
There you go.
All right, Mark Kelso, Buffalo Bills. We'll talk to you after the weekend, and we really appreciate this season you taking the time with us. And hey, it's January, and we're playing football.
Yeah, isn't that great? It's
Gotta
great
love
to
it.
say that. It's January, and the Bills are playing football in the postseason, and we appreciate everybody in Utica. You know, the fan base there, and your opportunities that you have to kind of spread the love for the Bills out there in Eastern New York, and so certainly we appreciate it. So anytime that you need to have me on, I'm more than happy to help.
All right, good
Thanks,
man. Mark, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again
Hey
soon.
guys, have a great day.
All right. Pretty cool. The Bills. It is January, and we're talking about it's been a lonely 17 years in January. Not much to do for Bills fans, and here we are.